So the plotting room is an essential part of the whole battery position. It is one of three that was in the defence of Sydney. So in 1938, the maritime defence against an assault on Sydney was based on three fortress observation posts and a command post in the centre, a battery at the north, e.g. ours here at North Head, and one at the south at Banks. Now, North Head, without the fortress plotting room, is useless, and that's why it was so essential to open it up, restore it, and make it safe for the public to use again.
My mother's role was as an instrument operator specialist, operating the equipment in this plotting room and the next. She was one of the Australian Women's Army Service women specially selected for these roles. The most likely time of attack was regarded as dawn and dusk, and so those were the times of high alert. Away from their downtime, when they weren't in the plotting room working, they had a wonderful time actually in the built and natural environment that North Head offered. Things like playing sport, squash, indoor basketball, tennis. They had athletics, informal athletics, carnivals with the men that were serving here. They roamed through the bush, all the bush tracks, walking down to the harbour beaches and swimming there. So, a great time. The women rotated their roles and were looking to plot the bearings and positions of ships, both enemy and friendly offshore. The observations coming in from the observation posts were put through a telephone exchange or came through electrically. There was also this newfangled thing called radar that the women were introduced to, but that was used, as I understand it, as a backup, especially when observation posts weren't able to see anything or the weather was inclement. The ultimate idea was to try and predict where the ships were headed so that the gunning crew could be told a predicted position for the guns to be aimed at, and there was special equipment for that as well. During the day, when they weren't at high alert, they would have lectures on all of the equipment that was being used, and also on the guns and on the radar that was being trialled.
So the plotting room is interesting because 80 years later when we're restoring, it's very difficult for us to understand with the technology of GPSs and laser rangefinders. But in 1938, when this was designed, it was based on triangulation. So what was important was that the fortress commander decided which of the OPs, and these are marked on this map as a number of OPs down the coast. Those OPs were selected, their data was sent in, and two range arms from the OPs, and it could have been one or three of them, were intersected. And you'll see in the photograph behind me here is the AWARs are lying on the table as the plot moves along. So there is a constant signal coming in. These AWARs are plotting it, and then from that intersection, the data is then transferred electronically to the next room to where the battery operator is, and they are feeding information in. So the whole process is analog as opposed to today's computer, but what it did do was it provided very accurate opening grid reference to engage the target. So the restoration in this building was a challenge, there's no question about it. The main issue was that we didn't have any good photographs, certainly no colour from 1944, and we had the plan, we had the official war memorial photographs, and we had some experience, as you've heard from one of the volunteers, their mother's contribution to a book, which helped us. Anyway, it was basically do what we could with what we had, and the main challenges were ripping out the insulation that was throughout the building. It had rotted, the wooden frame had disintegrated, and the ceiling had collapsed. And the second major challenge was there are 33 steps to get in and get out, and everything had to be carried down the stairs and everything had to be carried up the stairs.
The arbors that were serving here became quite close, and many friendships were formed. In fact, a group of about 15 of them stayed in touch for the rest of their lives, and would meet annually, at least. So lots of stories being told and retold. And in my youth, I would hear these stories often, and got intrigued by what North Head was all about, and subsequently inherited the photographs of the time here. And when I started volunteering for the Harbour Trust some years ago, all of those anecdotes and recollections were brought alive for me very much, all about the built and natural environment here, which my mother so thoroughly enjoyed.